I'm going to try to talk to you about the EU policies at the moment and what's happening in Brussels on a high level and how it's actually affecting our industry. And because, normally when I start to speak, or the Brussels-based organizations start to speak about the EU policies and what's happening there, the business people quite often lose interest very quickly because it's too far from their day-to-day business. But I'm trying to bridge the policy situation with what's actually happening to our business at the moment. So although the European Union treaties do not have a provision for a common forest industry or forest policy, the EU legislation is affecting our industry directly and indirectly all the time. And Bois and other sector organizations like EOS are trying to coordinate the very uncoordinated and puzzled EU legislation, trying to provide an impact assessment to the industry on what's happening in Brussels, but also a voice to EU decision makers. What are our concerns? So on the positive side, the EU Commission acknowledges the positive impact that wood and wood industry, building from wood, has on climate change. And there is a work being done and a roadmap to assess the whole life cycle of carbon emissions in buildings. And obviously wood is going to be well off in this comparison with other building materials. A week ago, actually, the EU Commission published a study titled Evaluation of the Climate Benefits of the Use of Harvested Wood Products in the Construction Sector and Assessment of Remuneration Schemes. So we are getting the positive impact from the Commission to the demand side. So as a result of that, we have wood building share growing pretty much everywhere in Europe. This graph shows what's happening in Germany on residential buildings, and but the similar development is in many European countries. And also on a governmental level, there are new rules and legislation being implemented that wood has to have a certain share in government projects. So from that side, from the legislation side, we're seeing a good development on the demand. Another thing also is that the building codes are now changing to enable taller buildings in wood. We're seeing this happening everywhere in Europe. And the last news that came out was that the city of New York has now allowed multi-story buildings built from CLT. Only 30 meters, but nevertheless, it's a step in the right direction. And as a result of that, we will be seeing growth in wood buildings and the demand for our products as well. So the construction industry at the moment is doing quite well. We had obviously the very steep fall last year when the COVID started, but we have recovered from that. And the building industry is expecting this year and next year 5% growth in Europe. It's expected to slow down a little bit after that, but nevertheless, we're seeing a very good demand for wood building products. Now, on the negative side, very many of the EU initiatives are at the moment risking of causing a shortage of raw material for us. For example, old growth forests are being protected, strictly protected, as with no harvesting allowed. Also, the environmental objectives are very often much higher on the agenda than economic considerations when we're talking about forests. And also there's a heavy focus on biodiversity, carbon sink of the forest, but there is no support in wood production and wood building material production. For example, under the new LULUCF, the forest targets of the CO2 absorbers mean that you have to harvest less or plant more to achieve these targets. Now, on the legislation side, the EU is working so that it looks like it's going to be difficult to get the sufficient raw material, but we also have the climate change that is creating problems for us. As you know, we've had this bark beetle in Central Europe during the past few years. We have had heavy forest fires in North America and in Russia past summer, and this is creating extreme volatility on a regional basis. And the forecasts at the moment for the climate change are not very encouraging. I mean, the planet is warming up, and it is expected to warm up unless the policies are going to change this. And what is this doing to our business? Well, first of all, it's creating volatility on the raw material prices, but the trend for raw material prices is up. So in the coming years, we are going to get used to much, much higher log prices that we have had in the past. And this is also been seen, for example, in the activity of investors buying forests. For the past 10 years, there's a large number of investment funds that have started to buy forests, hoping for profits. And we have seen this in the Baltics, for example. Now in Latvia, there are a number of investment funds that are buying all the forest that they can. So the investors are expecting that the log prices will continue to rise, and there will be more volatility on a regional basis as well. Now, overall, I would say that the EU is very positive about our industry from a demand perspective. But like I said, the raw material situation is an issue that we have to follow, and we have to be very active in Brussels to make sure that the decision makers understand that you on the one hand, you want to build more from wood, but at the same time, you want to reduce harvesting, and that doesn't really work out. Last week, there was the International Softwood Conference in Helsinki, and I want to share some of the main data from there with you. The production of sawn timber increased almost 7% in 2021, and in 2022, it is expected to increase only 0.6%. And at the same time, our buyers, represented by the European Timber Trade Federation, forecast that the consumption is going to increase by 1.5%, which means that there is the unbalanced situation regarding supply demand is going to continue. We have a dip at the moment, but I believe it's a short-term thing which will take us during the winter. When the spring comes, these expected forecasts in consumption are going to kick in, and we're going to start seeing the demand rise again. And this is not only in Europe, it's a global phenomenon. So we are seeing that the demand of sawn timber is going to increase. It is expected to increase in the short run, but also in the long run. The population is growing, and the demand for sawn timber products altogether is going to continue to rise. Now, there's another thing which is not so much talked about nowadays in our industry in Europe, and it is the carbon credits. In this chart, you can see the overall CO2 emissions on this planet. It's 48 billion tons of emissions. Now, there are certain structures in place to offset these. There are some tax programs. There's a compliance market where companies have to issue these carbon credits, but it is the voluntary market that we need to follow here. So there's about over 80% of the current emissions are not covered through these carbon offsets, and this is going to change. The American investment bank Goldman Sachs is expecting that the CO2, the carbon credit prices, which today are $10, maybe $15, are going to rise over $100 per ton. Now, if this is going to happen, this is going to create a new challenge for us regarding raw material. There are going to be forest owners who will decide not to harvest, but sell the carbon credits of their forests. And this is going to tighten the supply even further. And the legislation is going to be involved in this sooner or later. So it's all about raw material. Who has the logs, who has the control over the raw material, they will be in the driver's seat. The prices are at a record level at the moment. They will continue to go up. The legislative elements of EU are going to tighten the supply. There is the climate change that is also affecting negatively the availability of raw material. And we are seeing also these protectionism movements from countries to stop export of logs. From 1st of January, Russia will put in place the export ban for logs. Romania has it in place already. And such kind of moves are going to be more in the future. There are also some other challenges that our industry is facing. To some extent, also standards in buildings. For example, CLT standards in Europe are not similar in each country, and that could be seen also a bit of an obstacle for trade. We also have a challenge regarding our workforce in our industry. We are not a very attractive sector at the moment. We have older people, they are going to be retiring, and we need to make sure that in the future we are going to be attracting the right type of talents to work in the wood industry. We have also issues at the moment with logistics and energy prices. I won't go too much into that. And obviously now with the macroeconomic trends, we're going to be seeing higher inflation, and that eventually could lead to a slowdown of the economy. But when we have some challenges, we also have opportunities. Well, like I've said, wood is considered as one of the best building materials when it comes to fight for the climate change. And we've seen during the Corona crisis that the consumption of our products reached a completely new level. And also prices reached a new level. We actually tested what the consumer is willing and capable of paying for the products. And this was very positive for us to understand that your lumber, your 2x4 is not a cheap product. Actually, it can get a good market price that the industry actually needs to develop and invest. Also, the industry, as we are producing products that are solutions for the climate change, we also should be able to attract people because we are the green industry. And like I said, the forecast for the building industry is good. So we're going to be seeing good demand due to many reasons. And also the wood industry at the moment is truly global. I mean, we are exporting our products from Europe all across to Asia, to North America, and we are being affected by market developments in those countries as well. So, like in this forum, we are very well aware that wood buildings are a positive thing. But the question is, how can we communicate this better to the decision makers and also the public? And I think this is the big question that the industry is facing at the moment. We have not been very good at this. It's very good to organize these conferences, for example, but we are preaching to the choir. We need to get the message out to people who don't understand our industry, don't know our industry. Because otherwise, we're going to be facing this big dilemma. Are we going to be protecting our forests, or do we want to save the planet, for example, with building with wood? Thank you.